how did you get like started in mixing and getting familiar with all this types? You know, there's a lot of different special gear.
It's funny because I'm so not like the gear junkie, you know, like I'm not one of the people that are like, oh, did you hear about the thing and the blah, blah, blah. And it's it has the blank tubes and the transformer from the thing. You know, I can't, my brain can't really operate that, nor does it have the capacity to. So I started making records in New York. I worked at a studio in New York that was fully like, it was back when people were still mixing on desks and using a bunch of gear. So they had a bunch of stuff. There was a place called Platinum Sound. It no longer exists in that capacity. And it had like big old 80 channel SSLs. And, you know, you're constantly recalling this gear and just like giving love to it as you're an intern and assistant. Like I literally slept at that studio for a year.
Yeah.
That was my house. Because, you know, I didn't make any money. I was an intern. But that analog world got me into this. And then when I went out on my own, it was like a lot of basically all in the box. And there was always something missing. And when I was able to kind of expand out of it a little bit, it was just a huge sigh of relief for me to get where I needed to go in the finish line. You know, everyone's different. Could I get to where I need to go without any of it? Of course. But is it as compelling and quick and effortless for me with all this stuff? Yes.
It's more like you got to be around records that were going through this stuff and
that were being made in that, in that
hearing
time.
It in that capacity.
Yeah.
And sticking in your mind like, okay, I know that this thing does this thing or whatever.
Yeah, that's how you get that right away, that sound.
Yep.
Which I think is helpful because a lot of times today people don't necessarily have that. Going through those trenches in those years really helped to know what I want out of this stuff that I own.
I'm always interested in guys who are actually, you know, working full-time as mixers, and because I've had the privilege of having, you know, half a decade in that world. The last 4 or 5 years have been like a mix of kind of doing my own thing and then being online.
Yes.
And the world of online can be so, you know, we were talking about rules earlier, full of people with all of these self-imposed rules or whatever. And sometimes it's like, I get back in a room with someone who just mixes records every day. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is what, you know, you don't have to do like all of these crazy, sometimes I see comments, I'm like, why do you think that you have to do this way or whatever? It's like,
there's no have to at all. It's whatever gets you to where the record needs to go. You know, like what's the best for the song and how can I get there the most efficiently? The finish line for me, obviously record dependent, but like the stuff that I most enjoy making happens to be things that are compelling and vibey and cool. And I don't make records to sound good. I make them to sound interesting. Nashville Goodrich said that, you know, he's famous for making all the Radiohead records and just crazy talented human. And it's just like interjecting all this like interesting things that kind of breaks a record away from being just like a stale come and go, then have it a lasting presence.
I love that. If I can ask one more thing, what are some things that when you get sessions that are a pain in the butt, and what would be, let's say, advice for producers who are sending sessions to mixers? Like what's something that's just like, please stop doing this?
Yeah, I mean, it depends because there's definitely two sides of the spectrum of getting stuff that's just spot on, and then sometimes getting stuff that it's like, what in the world, you know? And it could be from like a very talented guy, and it's the nature of the day and the game where people come up on their own.
Yep.
You know, never have learned under someone like organization and the necessity of like being able to backtrack and naming, you know, get stuff. And it's just like everything's audio too. And like there's just like bad edits everywhere and nothing, you know, and it's not edited. And it's just like, and you expect the mix guy to do all this stuff. But it helps so much to be just on your game as far as the organization of things and even just like listening. Like sometimes I'm like, have you listened? That's what we're here for, to kind of clean up the mess. You know?